If you're receiving Social Security right now, or if you're planning to, there is something happening in the economy right now that could push your next benefit increase significantly higher than what most forecasts have been predicting. And I want to be very clear with you from the start, nothing is confirmed yet. Things are still very much up in the air. But based on the most recent inflation data that has been released, and based on what is currently happening both domestically and globally, we may be looking at a raise to Social Security benefits that is substantially higher than what we've been hearing. That's what we're going to break down today, clearly, honestly, and without any hype. So stay with me because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how your raise is calculated, what the current numbers are telling us, and what you should be watching for in the weeks ahead. Every year, Social Security beneficiaries receive what's called a COLA, a cost of living adjustment. That raise is not chosen by a politician, it's not negotiated, and it's not random. It is directly tied to inflation. Specifically, it is tied to a measure of inflation called the CPIW, the Consumer Price Index for Urban Wage Earners and Clerical Workers, published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, also known as the BLS. Here's the thing that a lot of people don't fully understand. When you see an inflation report in the news and think, why should I care about that? The answer, if you're a Social Security beneficiary, is because that number determines your raise. The inflation report and your benefit increase are directly connected. Right now, with prices continuing to rise across the board, groceries, energy, housing, healthcare, the inflation picture is shifting in a way that could meaningfully affect the 2027 COLA, and that's what we're going to unpack today. Let's get into the mechanics of this because understanding how the COLA is calculated is the key to understanding why what's happening right now is so significant. The Social Security Administration determines the annual COLA by comparing the average CPIW during the third quarter of the current year, that means July, August, and September, to the average CPIW during the third quarter of the previous year. The percentage difference between those two periods becomes your COLA for the following year. So, for example, the 2025 COLA of 2.5% was based on third quarter 2024 inflation compared to third quarter 2023. The 2026 COLA will be determined by third quarter 2025, and the 2027 COLA, the one we're beginning to forecast right now, will be determined by what happens to the CPIW during July, August, and September of 2026. That is why what is happening in the economy right now in early 2026 matters so much. If inflation spikes and stays elevated through the summer months, those third quarter readings are going to come in high, and that means a significantly higher raise for beneficiaries. To be honest with you, it's a deeply flawed system. The 3 months used to determine the raise are already months behind what people are actually experiencing in terms of prices. By the time your raise arrives, you've already been absorbing higher prices for over a year. But this is the system that's in place, and until there's a change, which doesn't appear to be coming anytime soon, this is how it works. So we work with what we have. The most recent inflation report from the BLS, covering February 2026, gives us our earliest data points for the year, and there are some important things to highlight. The CPIW on a year-over-year basis came in at approximately 2.2%, which historically is actually fairly modest. But the number that deserves more attention right now is the month-over-month CPIW reading, which came in at 0.5%, that is half of 1% in a single month. That monthly number matters because it tells us the direction things are moving, and February's reading does not yet capture what has happened with energy prices and oil prices in March. When the March inflation data is released in the middle of April, we are very likely going to see those numbers increase, possibly substantially, because those price spikes have not yet been reflected in the data. Here is what that means in practical terms. Based on the January and February data alone, current forecasts are placing the 2027 COLA somewhere in the range of 2.1 to 2.8%. The figures are volatile and they shift every month as new data comes in. But if March comes in as high as many analysts expect, we could see that forecast jump meaningfully, potentially into the 3% range or higher, possibly reaching mid to upper 3%, depending on the trend. Now, I want to be very careful here and very transparent because this is where we move from confirmed data into projections, and you deserve to know the difference. There are some economic forecasts circulating that suggest inflation could spike as high as 6% by the middle of 2026. If that were to happen, and if that elevated inflation persisted through the critical third quarter months of July, August, and September, the impact on Social Security's COLA calculation would be dramatic. A COLA in the range of 4%, 5%, or even higher would become mathematically possible. That would translate to real dollars. If your current monthly benefit is $1,800 and you receive a 5% COLA, your check increases by $90 per month, $1,080 per year. If your benefit is $2,200, a 5% COLA means $110 more per month, or $1,320 per year. But here's the honest truth that needs to be said clearly. A bigger raise only happens because prices have gone up significantly. The only way we get a 5% or 6% COLA is if inflation has truly spiked to that level. That means you've already been paying more for everything: food, utilities, medication, rent. The raise doesn't make you wealthier. It attempts to keep you from falling further behind. These two things, higher prices and a bigger COLA, go hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other. That's an important reality check that often gets lost in the excitement around a potentially large raise. One more economic factor worth understanding. The Federal Reserve controls interest rates, and right now, the likelihood of the Fed cutting rates in 2026 appears to be very low. According to prediction markets and analyst forecasts, we may see at most one interest rate cut later in the year, if that. When inflation is high, the Fed keeps rates elevated to try to slow spending and bring prices down. If inflation gets significantly out of hand, there is even a risk of rate increases. For Social Security beneficiaries on fixed incomes, high interest rates can affect savings accounts, credit costs, and the overall economy in ways that create real financial pressure. This is part of the broader picture to keep in mind. Let's be absolutely clear about what we know for certain and what remains uncertain. What is confirmed: the 2025 COLA was 2.5%. The current CPI-W data from January and February 2026 shows a year-over-year rate of approximately 2.2% and a month-over-month rate of 0.5%. Current early forecasts for the 2027 COLA range from about 2.1% to 2.8%. The COLA is calculated using the third quarter CPI-W average compared to the prior year's third quarter average. The March inflation report will be released in the middle of April and will be a critical data point. What is not confirmed: any specific COLA figure for 2027, whether inflation will spike to 6% or any other level, whether the Federal Reserve will raise or cut rates, and how global and domestic economic events will affect prices through the summer. We will not have a confirmed 2027 COLA figure until October 2026, when the SSA makes the official announcement based on the completed third quarter data. Beyond the COLA, your Social Security check can grow in other meaningful ways. If you haven't claimed yet, delaying your claim past your full retirement age, which is 67 for those born in 1960 or later, earns you 8% per year in delayed retirement credits up to age 70. That's a permanent increase to your base benefit, and every COLA you receive afterward is applied to that higher number. Your earnings record also matters significantly. Your benefit is calculated using your 35 highest earning years. If your SSA earnings record contains errors or missing years, you could be receiving less than you're owed. You can check and dispute your earnings record for free at ssa.gov.
Spousal and survivor benefits are another avenue that many people overlook entirely. If your spouse's benefit is higher than yours, you may qualify for up to 50% of their benefit while both are living, and up to 100% as a survivor if they pass away first. Your action steps are straightforward. First, mark your calendar for the middle of April 2026, when the March CPI inflation data will be released. That reading will be one of the most important data points of the year for determining where the 2027 COLA is headed. Second, visit ssa.gov to create or log into your My Social Security account and verify that your earnings record is accurate. Third, if you have questions about your specific benefit amount, spousal benefits, or claiming strategy, contact the SSA directly at 1-800-772-1213 or visit your local SSA office. Fourth, be cautious of any source claiming a specific confirmed COLA figure right now. Any number being floated at this point is a forecast, not an official announcement. Here's where things stand. The 2027 COLA is still being shaped by data that hasn't even been collected yet. What we know is that early inflation readings are trending in a direction that could push the final number higher than the modest forecasts that were circulating just a few months ago. Whether we end up at 2.5%, 3%, or something higher depends heavily on what happens to prices over the next several months, and particularly during July, August, and September. The most important thing you can do right now is stay informed with reliable sources, verify your own benefit information directly with the SSA, and understand that any raise, whether it's 2% or 6%, reflects the economic conditions you and millions of other Americans are already living through. We'll keep watching these numbers as they come in, and I'll be back with an updated forecast as soon as the April inflation report drops. As always, take care of yourself, share this with someone who needs it, and don't hesitate to leave your questions below.